All right, everybody, welcome back, and we are live with another edition of Reignmakers Football. It is Week 9. My name is Chris Costa, your host, and I'm excited to dive into this week because it's been a crazy run-up for the first 8 weeks of the season in the Reignmakers platform, in the Reignmakers competitions. There's been a lot of money paid out. A lot of people are taking home some big prizes. There's been a lot of fun nuances to each week, last week being our Dead Fellas NFT project and competition start. So I'm excited to join Peter Jennings is back with us this week, our NFT and DFS and Rainmaker expert. Peter, good to have you again, buddy.
Yeah, great to be back, Chris. Excited to chat about Week 9 and some of the updates on Rainmakers.
Yeah, a lot of exciting things are happening in the world of Reignmakers, not notably some incredible sales, as we've seen every week in the secondary market, but also some adjustments to gameplay, some adjustments to some of the player tags. We'll talk about that momentarily. So first off, I do want to talk about some of the key sales that we've seen because the secondary market has been on fire. Which is amazing to see this late into the season. Most notably, a Joe Burrow Rainmaker went off the board at $11,987, which I thought was a fantastic sale. Peter, just general thoughts on Burrow and the Bengals offense, even without maybe Jamar Chase here for a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, they've been great until the game against the Browns, which, is disappointing, but I think it's interesting specifically to Rainmakers, given Burrow is now a superstar and Chase has been revoked. We'll see when he ends up coming back, but that is a huge impact on the gameplay. So that sale is very interesting. I am pretty bullish on the Bengals going forward. Before the Chase injury, they were really starting to light it up. They were going shotgun almost exclusively, so the passing game was really starting to excel. It's a clear adjustment when you lose your top wideout, but they still have plenty of weapons with T. Higgins, Boyd, Hayden Hurst, Joe Mixon. So I still have a pretty bullish outlook on the Bengals. But yeah, it'll be great when they get Chase back.
Yeah, really incredible depth in Cincinnati. It didn't show against Cleveland. It was maybe more of a spot game, a bad spot for the Bengals offense, but with the ability to still put out a lineup of wideouts and weapons like T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, Hayden Hurst, after losing someone like Jamar Chase, that's pretty impressive. Second sale, the second most notable sale of the week really caught my eye because it's not a Rainmaker. It's a legendary Tyreek Hill that did $7,000, which is incredible to me. Tyreek Hill, and we've talked about him pretty much every week now, has shown an ability to just do whatever he wants, whenever he wants on the football field. What are you thinking about Tyreek Hill so far, and where do you think Tyreek Hill's going the rest of the year?
I was super bullish on Tyreek Hill coming into the year, definitely above his ADP in all the best ball drafts, and he's shown why. They're getting him the ball in all sorts of ways, averaging almost 35 DraftKings points per game. I mean, he's basically, as safe a receiver as you're going to have given the way they're using him, and obviously still has a ton of upside with his speed. So, he's a superstar now, which I think there's obviously merit for that. Number one receiver in fantasy football, right there with Cooper Kupp. So, yeah, I mean, Miami is really going, for it this year. They just traded for Bradley Chubb. They just signed him to a big contract. They brought in Jeff Wilson as well. So I think their offense is in a really good place, assuming Tua and these guys can stay healthy. And Tyreek Hill is certainly someone you want exposure to. And yeah, the price tag doesn't surprise me now that he's a superstar and just a really valuable card to have as any Tyreek Hill card, depending on what tier you're playing.
Without a doubt, yep. And you mentioned Tyreek Hill getting that superstar tag. We'll talk about that momentarily. Two final sales I want to hit on. Dalvin Cook Rainmaker came in at $5,600, and an Alvin Kamara Rainmaker came in at $5,000. So the secondary market's still alive and well, especially at the top end of gameplay in the Rainmaker and Legendary tier. Okay, so Peter alluded to it. We've got to talk about it. I think it's an important update. It's an important change. It's one I think a lot of us were hoping for and expecting. Superstar tags have been shuffled. They've been adjusted. So shout out to DraftKings for making those changes. Let's first start with some of the superstar tags that have been revoked. Okay. Jamar Chase, who's obviously out from injury, which I think is justified. Deebo Samuel, no longer superstar tagged. CeeDee Lamb, no longer superstar tagged. Dalvin Cook has lost his tag. Najee Harris has lost his tag, who's been slow for the first half of the season. Jonathan Taylor, no more tag. And Aaron Rodgers, no more tag. Who sticks out to you on that list between Chase, Debo, CD, Dalvin, Najee, Jonathan Taylor, and Aaron Rodgers? Peter, who do you think is maybe sticking out the most there, is the most deserving of losing that tag?
Well, Chase is the most interesting with the injury. I mean, he deserves to be a superstar, but with the injury, it makes sense. But that's still a really valuable card to have, especially as we get late in the season with the big qualifiers and those tournaments. So it'll be interesting to see when he comes back, but that's a big one. I think there's merit. I mean, Aaron Rodgers probably shouldn't have been a superstar coming into the year. I get why, given the name recognition. He's just a better real-life player than he is a fantasy player. The one that sticks out the most in terms of someone that I think, could merit being a superstar the rest of the way is CD Lamb. Now that Dak Prescott's back, they had a good week last week. And I expect CD Lamb to be a top 5, top 10 receiver the rest of the way. So that's probably the best bargain of the group that got revoked. I think there's merit for everyone else. I mean, Najee Harris, I'm not optimistic. Jonathan Taylor is battling injuries. So I think the rest of it makes sense. But CD Lamb is probably the guy that I think there's the most opportunity to still be, putting up superstar type numbers. So that's someone I'm interested in for the rest of the year.
Absolutely, yeah, and I love your point about Jamar Chase. Right, if you're planning on competing towards the second half and the end of this season and going into qualifiers, if Jamar Chase maintains a no superstar tag status, that could be additional value for you as you start to go build lineups with that superstar limitation. So keep that in mind. Good points by Peter on the revoked status. Okay, let's talk about players that have gained a superstar tag. Okay, maybe this is even more important. Tyreek Hill, who we've talked about, has gained a superstar tag, well-deserved. Saquon Barkley has gained a superstar tag. Nick Chubb has gained a superstar tag, who has been certainly probably the best running back on the planet. Joe Burrow is now a superstar, and Jalen Hurts is now a superstar, okay? So real quick, Peter, who jumps off the page at you as our new superstars in Reignmakers football?
I think 4 of the 5 are super obvious. Tyreek Hill, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Jalen Hurts were just really obvious. You're looking at the top running backs. Tyreek Hill has been basically the best receiver this year, and Hurts certainly, the top option and the most expensive quarterback in DFS. The guy that stands out is Joe Burrow, and I think it's correlated with Jamar Chase getting moved out and just the game mechanics of the stacks with Cincinnati. So that's the most surprising one. I know other people were surprised, but I think given kind of the way the game's set up, if they did not Chase down and didn't move Burrow up, we'd see a ton of these Bengals stacks. So I think it makes sense. Obviously, if you're holding Burrow, it makes lineup construction a little bit more challenging, but I think there's merit to it. And obviously, especially in the short term, the Burrow, Higgins, Mixon type stuff makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Okay, awesome. And real quick, guys, for everybody following in the Reignmakers sphere, so to speak, you might recall the Deadfellas competitions that kicked off last week. It was an amazing weekend of Deadfellas gated competition action. A lot of cash prizes paid out, a lot of NFT prizes handed out and airdropped. There are still some Deadfellas packs left. Again, you need to utilize the Deadfellas NFT Reignmakers cards in order to participate in the Deadfellas gated Reignmakers competitions, okay? The cash prizes are insane. They're going throughout the rest of the year, okay? So it is still very equitable to go ahead and grab your packs, get your Deadfellas cards, and start building lineups to enter those competitions. So make sure you head over to the DraftKings Marketplace under Drops and grab those Deadfellas NFT Rainmaker card packs. Okay? Secondly, something I'm super excited about as a UFC fan, Reignmakers UFC is officially here. Okay? It is dropping with UFC 281. There are both core and rare contests available. There's going to be a lot more dedicated UFC content coming your way for all my UFC and MMA junkies out there. But wanted to make sure that we mentioned it on this call or on this conversation because it is something I'm super excited about, and I know it's something a lot of folks in the Reignmakers football world are super excited about. So UFC Reignmakers is here. All right? Okay. Week 9. It's upon us. We've talked about some of the changes that have happened in the game. We've talked about some of the performances that have been had. Derrick Henry had a massive Week 8. Alvin Kamara had a massive Week 8. I want to talk about Week 9 with Peter. Peter, just generally talk to me about a couple of matchups that jump off the page at you, what you're eyeing, where you see some of the biggest opportunity.
Yeah, it's a really interesting week. I think this Falcons Chargers game certainly stands out. I think it's a really good spot for the Chargers to get going. The Falcons, the one downside, they've been running the ball and playing a little slow, but if the Chargers can get out early, I'm expecting a ton of action in this game. We have a total currently at 50. So Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, hopefully Keenan Allen's back playing well. Herbert, I think, makes a lot of sense. And the Falcons, Kyle Pitts finally had a pretty good game last week. And I'm still optimistic about Drake London and don't hate the idea of using Marcus Mariota. So I like all the pieces in that game. And then in addition, the Seahawks Arizona game, I think, is really enticing. DeAndre Hopkins is still getting a ton of volume. I really like Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins paired together. And then the other side of the ball, Kenneth Walker, Tyler Lockett keeps putting up big numbers. DK Metcalf, even on the injury, had a decent week. So I think that's another really exciting game. You have a total around 50 there as well. So those are probably the two best game environments on the slate. And I expect those to be pretty popular in DFS. So if you have those cards in Reignmakers, I think it makes a lot of sense to put them to use in good contests.
Love it. Okay, great. And I mentioned Derrick Henry. I mentioned Alvin Kamara. They happen to be in two of our featured showdown matchups this week. Talk to me quickly about Tennessee at Kansas City.
Yeah, that's a great game for fantasy, especially on the Kansas City side. I'm really interested to see how Kansas City uses Kadarius Toney. On the other side, yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry is really the main option. We'll see who Tennessee rolls out there, but Derrick Henry obviously is an absolute monster, and that's going to be the recipe. I mean, I think the Titans are going to try to run the football regardless of who's at quarterback, and Derrick Henry can put up a huge game. So that's interesting. If you're going to go to the passing game, you're hopeful for Tannehill, and I think Robert Woods still makes some sense. But on the other side of the ball, Travis Kelce's a monster. We'll see how Kadarius Toney impacts the other receivers. I think Juju's usage is probably the most safe of the other receivers. But, yeah, you can't go wrong playing any of the Kansas City games. And then, yeah, the Baltimore-New Orleans game, you're looking at a much better total. Kamara just went absolutely off. He looks so smooth, doesn't he? Just, like, gliding past people. Certainly has – it looks like he's fully healthy and looks like that player that, a lot of people drafted early in season-long drafts. So I think Kamara is really interesting. Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, I think is another really good stack. And I'm waiting for Olave to have just a huge game. I played quite a bit of him last week in DFS. It didn't pan out, but I'm going to continue to bet on Olave and his talent going forward.
I love it. Awesome. Yeah, they're very interesting showdown matchups this weekend. A lot of tough decisions to make. Talk to me real quick. If you're thinking from a superstar perspective and you've got to build lineups, you either got to go with Derrick Henry or Patrick Mahomes. Who are you going with?
I'll take Patrick Mahomes. And I know Derrick Henry just had a huge game, but give me Patrick Mahomes. I think Kansas City is in a really good position to do well here. And, with Patrick Mahomes, you don't have to worry about the usage that Kadarius Toney is going to take. It's just another weapon that they can implement off the bye for Patrick Mahomes. So, instead of trying to guess which receiver is going to get less opportunity and which one's going to get more, just play Patrick Mahomes and get all of the Kansas City goodness on offense. So I think Patrick Mahomes is a no-brainer start this week.
And if you go with Mahomes, you don't have to worry about going with either Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill. So, hey, there you go. All right, real quick, generally, when you think about Kamara and Derrick Henry, I just, out of my own curiosity, I look at both of them the rest of the season being two of the more valuable, aside from Nick Chubb, but now Kamara without a superstar tag after this week's changes. Two of the more valuable running backs going forward. Who would your choice be between the two, knowing Henry still carries that tag and Kamara doesn't carry that tag, and knowing their offenses? If you got to pick one, are you going Kamara or Henry the rest of the way?
You're definitely going Kamara for me. His usage in the passing game is just so elite. And Derrick Henry obviously is going to get a lot of opportunity, a lot of rushing opportunities, but give me the guy who's involved in the passing game with DraftKings scoring PPR. I really think he's positioned super well to have big games, and he's not game script dependent either. I mean, Tennessee gets down in a big way. They're passing a little bit to Henry, but it's not as good for him. Kamara's in a great spot if they're leading by a lot or if they're behind. So I just think he's more versatile and is going to be a better fantasy play the rest of the year.
No doubt. I love it. I love the breakdown. I love the analysis. I love the expertise. That's Peter Jennings of LuckyTrader.com. My name is Chris Costa. It's Week 9. It's Reignmakers football. Good luck, everybody. Get your lineups in, and we'll see you this weekend.